I'm going to share the 3 communication habits that all of us tend to have, and they make people dislike us. And then, what's behind the habits so that we can change the habits? We dive into all of it right now. Let's go. Helping you win in your work life so that you're winning in other areas of your life. I'm Ken. This is the Ken Coleman Show. So I'm only going to focus on 3 habits today, but I think these are 3 nasty little habits that we all can develop quite easily and largely be unaware of them, or certainly be unaware of the source to where we can get to the point where we can say, all right, I can make these changes. But we're talking about winning in the workplace with people. You can't win in the workplace just by showing up, just doing your job, ignoring everybody else, not being cognizant of how you relate and connect with people. You just can't. I don't care what you say, you can't. And you might call it winning, but it's not really winning. You will not advance. You will not gain influence if you can't win with people in the workplace. So we're going to talk about how we interact with other people because it's so important, and these are people habits, if you will. The first is controlling behaviors. Now, what does this look like? Micromanaging, power trips, not open to any kind of change or new idea. How many of you know people like that? How many of you are like that? Where you're just, anytime you come into a meeting and somebody hits you with something new that's outside of your sacred cow or the way we've always done it. How many of you know people like that? And then manipulation. You're emotionally, mentally manipulating people. So whether it's micromanaging, weaponizing your seniority, not open to change or new ideas or manipulation, I got to tell you, if that is a habit, if you are doing that, I'm telling you, it is a controlling behavior. You are in a habit of trying to control everybody and everything around you. Now, we're going to unpack this a little bit later, but I'm going to go ahead and give this to you to chew on. Underneath this controlling habit is fear. If you are a controlling person, you are a fearful person. It's that simple. Control is a maneuver, a technique to try to alleviate fear. Next, what's the other bad habit? Number 2, people pleasing. Oh, this is exhausting. And what does this look like? This habit looks like insincerity because you're always shifting your identity. You come across as one way to some people and one way to other people. And you can have 2 conversations in the span of an hour and one person got a totally different message and feel and attitude or whatever, and someone else got a completely different one. You're a people pleaser, so you're like a chameleon. And this is not healthy. You're perceived as untrustworthy because you're always saying yes, 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 yes. And you say so many yeses that you can't even keep track of them, let alone deliver on them. How about greed? This looks greedy. It looks gross in the sense of I'm all about me and getting ahead. I'm a people pleaser because I'm just saying whatever I need to say and doing whatever I need to do to advance. There's no sincerity here. This also looks really desperate. You have no vision for your future, no goals, no clear path. And so what happens is you end up looking like the desperate person just looking for attention from anybody. Can I get your attention? Can I please you? Always pleasing, pleasing, pleasing. It makes you look really weak and desperate. Now, what's at the root of this? It's insecurity. If fear is at the root of controlling habits, insecurity is at the root of pleasing habits. Third, and I'm only covering 3 today, I think these are the 3 biggies where we lose with people in the workplace and thus hold ourselves back. The third behavior, the third habit is disengaged. What does this look like? It looks like you're undisciplined. It looks like you're disheveled as it relates to being prepared for meetings, to do your work. It looks lazy. It looks as though maybe you're being a little bit dishonest. See, when people ask you a direct question in a meeting or your leader asks you a direct question and you're fumbling around, you may not be being dishonest at all, but because you're disengaged, you aren't prepared, you don't have an answer, you have no perspective at all, what it ends up doing is it makes you look dishonest or untrustworthy. What else does disengaged behavior look like? It looks like somebody who is just largely overlooked and forgotten all the time because you don't have any input at all. You're in the meeting, I think you were in the room. You're just so disengaged, you are not memorable. And thus you become forgettable. And then the other way that disengaged, we can identify it is a person who's just always stuck. They're complaining about being stuck, commenting about being stuck, no progress. They're not moving forward. And so these are signs of a habit of just largely being disengaged. You aren't all in, if you will. Now, what's at the root of disengagement? The root of disengagement is hopelessness. And here's what happens. The funny thing about hope. Hope is powerful. You show me an optimistic person, and I'll show you a hopeful person. I'll tell you. That's just, you show me a pessimistic person, I'll show you a not hopeful person. Hope's amazing. Scripture says that hope deferred makes the heart sick, and it does it in a way that we avoid the pain. So when we don't have hope, what do? I think we withdraw. I think this is true in our relationship life, and it's true in our professional life. A person whose hope has waned for a variety of reasons, whatever the reason that their hope has waned, I can tell you that they begin to withdraw. In other words, they disengage. Why? Because it's painful. You ever walked up on a hornet's nest? It's a horrible thing. I'll never forget, I was about 15 years of age. I was cutting the grass at my childhood home, and I was cutting along that we lived out kind of in the country in the woods, and I was cutting along the edge of where we let the grass grow a little bit higher at the edge of the tree line, and I was cutting grass, and all of a sudden I began to feel a sting in my calf muscle. And I thought, well, that's odd. And then moments later, another one, to the point where I was like, what has happened? I let go of the lawnmower, turned it off, and I realized that I had mown over a hornet's nest and they were coming at me. Now, how many of you think that in that moment that I stayed right there, grinned and bare it, got back on the lawnmower and pushed it away from harm? How many of you think I did that? What did I do? I immediately began to run. I'll never forget, my mom said she was on the front porch and she saw it. She didn't know what was happening. I just, all of a sudden, I'm high-stepping it and I'm running away. She knew something was up. She didn't know what was up. It's kind of comical to her. But what was I doing? I was immediately disengaging. I was out. And that's what happens when pain hits us. And so the soul, with a lack of hope, begins to feel the pain of rejection, being overlooked, not involved. And so what do? We disengage at work, because we don't want to deal with that pain. So coming up next, now that we know the root, what do we do to overcome these habits? I'll tell you.
Do you know what you were born to do? In order to get hired at a job you love, you need to get clear on your talent, passion, and mission. That's why our team created the Career Clarity Guide. In just a few minutes, this free tool will walk you through a process to discover what you do best, that's your talent, the work you love to do, that's your passion, and the results that matter to you, your mission. Then you'll feel more confident throughout the job search process. To get started, go to kencoleman.com/clarity.
All right, we're talking about 3 really, really debilitating habits with people that can hurt us in the workplace and as a result, hold us back professionally and financially. So we talked about the controlling behavior, the people-pleasing behavior, and the disengaged behavior. And these are habits. And so we talked about the root. So let's dive into this. We said the root of a controlling habit in the workplace is fear. So once we realize what the root is, we now treat the cause. So if I've got a sore knee and I go see the doctor's going to examine the knee, take x-rays, MRI, whatever, and the doctor is trying to get to the bottom of the source of the pain in my knee. And then, and only then, do they come up with a plan of treatment. So if I know that I'm a controlling person in the workplace, I'm probably a controlling person in my personal life. And so if I believe, you Ken, that the root of a controlling habit, a controlling behavior is fear, then I need to attack the fear. So we got to find out, what is it that I'm afraid of? So in the workplace, let's keep it to that context today. What are you afraid of? Now, this is gut level stuff. You got to be honest. And I think this is a getting alone. And I think you start with journaling this out. And no one's going to see it, so we can be safe. What is it that I'm afraid of? Am I afraid of rejection? Putting myself out there with an idea or going after a promotion? Am I afraid of rejection? Here's another one. Am I afraid of failure? Am I afraid of the unknown? These are the three biggies that I see. Rejection, failure, and the unknown. Three biggest fears. And so that'll help you get started. You could be more specific than that. Write it down. I am afraid of, and I write it down. Now, in doing so, we have to look at, okay, what's the worst case scenario? What if this fear, as I've written it down, comes true? What's the worst case? Then ask another question. Well, what are the chances of that happening? Here's another question. What would I have to do, or would others have to do for this fear to actually come true? And those three questions, what's happening is it's allowing you to dissect the fear. As I've said on the show many times before, you put the fear on the witness stand, and let's figure out if fear is telling us the truth and protecting us, or is fear lying and holding us back? So we've got to dig, and we go, okay, now I'm going to go get some feedback. I'm going to share this with some people. Outside the office, inside the office, I want to get some perspective because I want to make sure that I'm looking at this as objectively as possible. It's okay, I'm looking at the fear. I'm afraid of this happening. What would need to happen for this to be true? So what do I do to make sure this doesn't happen? And so what happens is we begin to change our mindset on the fear, and then we change our actions. You cannot change the way you act until you change the way you feel. So you got a lot of people every year that do a New Year's Eve resolution, right? New Year's resolution, I'm going to lose weight. And you talk to anybody in the gym industry, they'll tell you the gym's packed in January. About mid-February, it dissipates. Why? Because people are just thinking their way through it. They're going, everybody else does a New Year's resolution. I think I'd like to lose weight, so I'm going to try this. But they don't have a deep, abiding conviction, a feeling of saying, I feel bad when I weigh this much or when I don't exercise, and I'm going to do something about it. That's when the habit sticks. So let's look at people pleasing. If you've got a bad habit of people pleasing in the office, you got to get to the root of that. And again, the root of this is insecurity. What are you insecure about? Do you think you're not enough? Do you think you're not good enough? Did you grow up in a home with a mom or a dad where they were verbally abusive and you just don't have high self-esteem? I mean, folks, this is going to be some rough and tough stuff for some of you. You got to get to the heart of it. Do I not think I'm valuable? What's at the root of that? Where does that come from? How long have I been dealing with that narrative? So how then can we examine that voice that's driving that habit and go, okay, I got to make some changes here. So can I take inventory of what I'm doing well? Can I get some feedback from people who say, you're really valuable here? Yes, you can. You've got to go get evidence that is the opposite of the voice that's been driving the habit. So if I'm afraid, as I walked you through, put the fear on trial, same thing with the insecurity, I got to go get other evidence that says, you know what? There's a small chance that this is going to happen and I'm going to fail. There is a bunch of people giving me feedback that I'm very valuable, I'm very talented here, and that I do have something to offer. Now, all of a sudden, I change the voice, the source of the bad habit. See, the habit will change when I have a different perspective. It's literally as though, I wish I had my reading glasses in here. It's literally as though I've been seeing myself this way, and I put on new glasses and I have a completely different perspective. The hopelessness issue. This is about disengagement. I'm disengaged because I really don't have any hope. Why don't I have any hope? What is your hopelessness about? Are you hopeless that you'll ever find work that you really are good at, that you enjoy? Are you hopeless that you could work in an environment where your leader values you and takes care of you? How do you build a new perspective that'll give you a new habit on the way you see the world? How do you do that? You do that by getting around different voices and different people. And you begin to get around people that are positive about you and about opportunities. Because here's what's happened. You have learned how to be disengaged. You have adopted a narrative that didn't give you much hope. And then you start hanging around with other people who validate your narrative and your view. So in this case, if you want to get over the habit of being disengaged and you want to re-engage, you need to fill up your cup with hope. And you will not be able to completely change your perspective on your own. You will need to be around people who share a positive perspective, a perspective that you're looking to adopt. That's what you're going to have to do. And so when you are around those people, they are a constant reminder of what a proper, healthy, positive, hopeful perspective is. And this is enormous. And you will naturally begin to re-engage. And here's the example. I don't know if you've ever seen a movie, a scene where maybe a system shut down, maybe a computer system shut down, power goes out at the worst time, right? I was watching a movie on Netflix the other day, and I'm trying to forget what movie it was, like 65 million years ago, whatever the movie was. And they're trying to escape. And just when they escape, a dinosaur comes out of nowhere, Nathan, and beats up the spaceship, and the power goes, right? And so it goes away. And so this is what's happened if you are in this habit of being disengaged all the time. Whatever's happened to you, your hope meter just goes, right? And so in the movie, right, circumstances change. They're able to get some new power back. Something happens. And it's inevitably when that moment happens, when the spaceship, if you will, in this example, powers back up, you literally see the meter go, and all systems come online, and they're able to fly away. This is the same thing with engagement. When you begin to see your future with some positive, hopeful perspective, and then you hang around people who not only are that way, but they share that hopeful perspective about your future, and they're cheerleaders, and they support you, and they believe in you, here's what happens. Just like that spaceship all of a sudden powers up, you will engage in every area of your life. Here's why. Because the heart propels you forward. It pulls you, if you will. And that will happen because you have hope. And then the habit of withdrawing or disengaging, just kind of floating through life, you'll be completely present. And people will notice that you're present. So I've walked through these habits of being controlling and people-pleasing and disengaged. And I gave you the sources and then how you begin to reframe all of this. But why does this matter? Why am I challenging you with this? Because those habits are holding you back from the life that you desire to live. Change those habits, change your future, change your life.
Are you wondering if you should leave your current job or stay put? You're not alone. That's why we created the Should I Quit My Job quiz. In just 5 minutes or less, this quiz will help you determine if you're at the right company and if you're in the right role. If you need to make a move, you'll even get practical next steps to keep you moving forward. Listen, stuck is a choice, and life is too short not to do what you were created to do. To take the quiz, go to kencoleman.com/quiz.
You'll make this rather snappy, won't you? I have some very heavy thinking to do before 10 o'clock.
Well, that'll put a little pressure on you, huh? Got to get to it quickly. Hey, if you are enjoying the show via YouTube, would you help us grow? You can do that by liking the video that you're watching, subscribing to the channel, and then sharing. Also, if you listen via the podcast, give us a follow, a 5-star review, and share as well. We would be so grateful for that. Okay, in my never-ending quest to keep you folks informed and then inspired to not get sucked into all of the headlines and the matrix of negativity, I want to cover a couple things here. There is a trend right now, and I think it's going to end up being positive. I think. But I also think it might be incomplete, and I want to address that. And I'm going to be speaking to a broad audience here, but I'm also going to be really challenging those of you that are in management positions. So I've got two headlines here, one an MSN.com article, another an Investment News article. And here's the headline. Employee well-being is so critical to some organizations that they're turning it into a new C-suite role. AT&T brought on a senior vice president of health and well-being in 2022. Professional services powerhouse EY hired a chief well-being officer in 2021. And management consulting firm Aon hired a chief well-being officer in 2022. Even the CIA hired a chief well-being officer last year, and companies like Delta, the largest airline in the world, hired a chief health officer in 2021. Now, these roles are not medical. It sounds medical, but they're really focusing on the mental health and then overall wellness, physical health, as well as financial health. And this to me is an interesting trend. I think it's a good trend if it's not just about responding to the headlines and responding to the most, shall we say, urgent HR problems. And this is where I'm a little bit cynical that this will turn into anything substantive, because big business usually is always responding to something that may end up creating liability for them. And so the world of big business, because we live in this litigious, lawsuit-happy society, they are always about protecting themselves. And in this case, this feels like it could be good, and I hope that it is. But it could also be just about protecting themselves, not protecting their people. We shall see. Around 64% of U.S. workers and HR leaders, around 64% of the 1,600 U.S. workers and HR leaders surveyed said they struggled with mental or behavioral issues, according to a March report from primary care practice One Medical. 91% of that cohort said they were less productive because of struggling with mental or behavioral issues. An employer can't afford to ignore these issues, according to Gallup. Failing to invest in well-being equates to a loss of $322 billion in turnover and lost productivity costs. Now, there is a growing movement related to this. There's a growing movement of executives who are saying we need mandatory reporting about employee well-being. So we need some metrics and we need to report it. 85% of C-suite executives believe that organizations should require mandatory reporting of well-being metrics. This from a new Deloitte and Workplace Intelligence study. What is workforce well-being? This is referring to a holistic measure of employees' mental, physical, social, and financial health. Emily Dickens, Chief of Staff for the Society of Human Resource Management, this is the largest association of human resource managers in the United States. She warns that the result of well-being surveys may be less important than concrete steps companies are taking to invest in employee health resources. Okay, she's absolutely right. I applaud her for saying this, and I want to pause here. All of the things that I report on in this show, and we're talking about this stuff and coming up with well-being metrics, because you got to come up with the metrics. Then you got to measure them, and then you got to report them accurately. You hope they're reported accurately, because this is going to be a stain on companies. So remember this. If a big-time company starts putting out, here are our well-being metrics, and it matches up to what the data says, more on that in a moment, this is going to be a stain on these companies' brands, because it's not good. The numbers aren't good. So sorry for being cynical, but I question whether or not these companies will really be honest with releasing the metrics. And are the metrics a recruiting tool to be thus manipulated? Or are the metrics something that leaders are saying, you know what, we're going to share this with our internal employees. We're going to be open. We're going to be honest. We're going to have hard conversations. And we're going to make the changes that need to be made. That's the question. But is the metrics, is the quiet rooms, the mental health days, is that the solve? Or are we treating symptoms with painkillers and not ultimately going towards healing? I think the answer is pretty simple. All of these tactics are worthless. They are nothing more than Band-Aids, painkillers, and beyond. Until cultures change from the top down to where there are leaders who are humble, leaders who are servant-focused, leaders who lead their leaders well and make their leaders feel seen, heard, and valued, and then hold them accountable to do the same for the people they're leading, until this becomes extremely intentional. And the focus is people first, not profit first. Until this happens, folks, real change is not going to happen. And we will continue to see high disengagement numbers like Gallup puts out every year in their state of the workplace in America. We will still see skyrocketing stress and anxiety and burnout, and on and on and on the list goes. We will continue to see divorces skyrocket. We will continue to see unhealthy people at home in their home life because they are absolutely broken down and they are on fire at work. And then we're supposed to just turn that off and walk into the house and speak with love and respect to our spouses and our kids. We're supposed to be fully present in the home when we have been trying to survive for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 hours straight. Come on, folks. You know that doesn't make any sense. This is a leadership issue. All of this. It's a leadership issue. Period. Problem is we have a lot of unhealthy leaders. And unhealthy leaders can't lead from a healthy perspective. They can't foster a healthy culture. It's impossible. A majority of employees say their health either worsened or stayed the same since last year. 8 in 10 respondents identified stressful job duties as the biggest roadblock to improving their quality of life. I can tell you something, folks. When I've been in seasons of my life working where I'm stressed out, my life sucks. I eat bad. I don't sleep well. I'm probably not the best husband and certainly not a very good dad. I'm not engaging with my friends, and when I am, I'm just griping. The problem is this study showed a disconnect between what executives and employees think their companies are doing to promote well-being. Listen to this. 89% of executives surveyed believe their policies are helping move toward that goal, but only 41% of employees share the same view. Leaders, you're not aware. You're not plugged in. You're not willing to hear the truth. You're not changing anything. You're making it worse.
Did you know that recruiters take an average of 6 seconds to scan a resume? And that's if they ever see it in the first place. In fact, 75% of resumes are rejected before reaching a hiring manager. Listen, folks, if you want to get hired, you've got to make your resume worth noticing. That's why we created How to Write the Perfect Resume. This free guide will walk you through the 5 steps to stand out in the hiring process to get you your dream job. If you want to get started, go to kencoleman.com/resume.
Switching gears, looking at our youngest generation of workers and what they think about retirement, what they expect. And I know on the YouTube here, for those of you watching on YouTube, I got a much younger audience, and so this is important. They're calling, excuse me, they're calling Generation Z Zoomers. I have not heard this before until I read this article. I don't know what I think about that. But Gen Z believes that they will retire at 60 years of age. This is on average, according to a new survey from Northwestern Mutual. But 2 in 5 of Gen Z also expect to live to 100. Boy, this is a very positive group of kids. Can I just say, I think it's a great run if you live to 100. But have you ever met anybody in their 90s? It's sweet. I will tell you that my grandmother and my great-grandmother both lived to be 195, 196. My wife's great-grandmother's 93 right now. And it comes with its challenges. So I hope health improves dramatically, because making it to 100, folks, I don't know if I want to. All right? I'm just putting that out there. I hope that doesn't offend anybody, just being honest. But let's focus on their expectations that they will retire at the age of 60. What the experts are saying, they're wringing their hands a little bit, but then I'm going to give some reality to this. The average Gen Zer has saved $35,800 for retirement. Almost 2/3 of Gen Z expect to be financially prepared for retirement, but only 52% of unretired baby boomers, 45% of Gen X, that's my generation, and 54% of millennials were as optimistic. Now, let's just call this what this is. To some degree, the younger you are, the more optimistic you are, because you don't know what you don't know, and that's a beautiful thing. But now here's a positive. Gen Z is not counting on Social Security. Fantastic. Because I wouldn't count on Social Security. In fact, as a Gen X, I'm not counting on Social Security. But what is making experts wring their hands is the total amount that Gen Z thinks they need to save to then be able to retire at 60. And that number is $1.2 million. Now, there is a problem there, because I think if you retire at 60 with $1.2 million, and we're talking about 30, 40 years from now, that's not going to go very far. If you just look at today's current costs, $1.2 million on an average life expectancy of mid to high 70s, it could be tight. Just for comparison's sake. Americans in their 30s estimated they needed $1.44 million for retirement, while those in their 50s forecast $1.56 million. You can survive, but I'm not sure that you're thriving on $1.2 million. Again, I'm looking forward with inflation. Just not crazy inflation, just natural inflation. If you look over the next 30, 40 years, you go into the future, how far will $1.2 million stretch? Now, again, the experts get all, I'm going to come back, and I think there's some real positive stuff here. A recent analysis found that half of the 35 million people with traditional Medicare spend at least 16% of their income on out-of-pocket healthcare costs. So annually, that's an average of $6,600 on insurance premiums and medical services. And that doesn't include long-term care, which can be very expensive. So again, that's where the $1.2 million, 30, 40 years from now, I think it's a little too tight. I'd like to see more there. So if someone wanted to live off of $4,000 a month after taxes, okay, taking into account 3% inflation and a return on investment retired funds of 6%, that's a little low, they would need somewhat closer to $4 million. So do we need to be saying, oh, Gen Z, you guys, you're so unrealistic? Maybe a little bit, but let me just say this. If Gen Z is investing right out of the gate, and they're investing in their early 20s and they stay with it and they don't accumulate debt, then they're going to be well past the $1.2 million. Those are just the numbers. If you're investing over a 30, 40-year period, and that compound interest is unbelievable. So, while these young people may expect to live to 100 and walk away from work at 60, it's all possible. But you got to be disciplined and invest over the long haul and never quit.
According to Glassdoor, the average job offer attracts over 250 applicants. If you've made it to the interview, you've already made a great impression. So now is the time to showcase how you are the best choice for the role. That's why we created How to Win the Interview. This free guide will walk you through the 5 strategies to help you stand out amongst the competition. With just some intentionality, you can prepare yourself to win the interview. Go to kencoleman.com/interview.
All right, let's do a little coaching here. We got Dave on the line in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Dave, you're on the Ken Coleman Show.
Hey, Ken, how you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. How can I help?
Good. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
My question for you today is wanting to know your thoughts on I'm exploring a potential job change, but the caveat to that is I'm newly married, and by newly married, I mean about a month and a half in.
All right. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. She's amazing. I love her a lot. And I know the common wisdom, and probably good wisdom, is to not do anything drastic, such as a job change or a big move or anything like that within your first year of marriage. However, my current job is quite stressful, and, my wife has said, I'm really in support of you changing a job within, this early of a marriage, because I don't want your leftovers of your energy at the end of the day.
Come on.
She said that, and I was like,
she's a great woman. That's fantastic advice, by the way. And I would disagree that this move is what I would call drastic, because you're just so miserable where you are. This is actually, as your wife has just beautifully framed it, this is good for you, and it's good for her. It's good for you both. So
yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I don't think this is drastic negatively. I think it's drastic positively.
Okay. What if the potential job change also has a move with it? Now, it'd only be an hour from where we're at.
Well, where's she at on that? It's not a Ken question. It's not a question for me. That's a question for her. If she's fine with it, then I'm fine with it. Because if we are together and we are going, you know what, this is a good move, and this particular job is the right move, and it's going to require that we move, then I think it makes sense. Where's she at on this?
She's open to it, especially because it'd be closer to where she works, actually. She works about 45 minutes north of where we're at.
Now, that feels like a no-brainer, but for some reason it doesn't feel that way for you. Why?
Family and friends, and more in the southern suburbs where we're at.
Ah, okay. So she's more, so it's better for her, at least on the commute side of things.
On the commute side of things, yes, we would both be, I would say, conflicted on the family and friends side of things.
How much is she commuting right now? What's her daily commute look like?
It's about 45 minutes, but she goes in maybe 3 to 4 times a week.
Okay. And this job is an hour. The actual office is an hour away from where you live now.
Yes.
Okay. What if you moved 30 minutes, you split the difference, and it's closer for both of you, but you're really across town. I mean, I would listen, if I drive from here in Franklin, where I live, to Nashville, it's 25, 30 minutes easy. I
Sure.
don't consider that a long way to go to see my friends or my family. In fact,
Sure.
my in-laws live 20 minutes from us. So I feel like maybe that's a viable option, to where we're not uprooting ourselves from friends and family,
Sure.
but we
That makes
are
sense.
moving closer to make both of our commutes a little bit better. How many times a
Sure.
week? Let's keep playing this out, because I think this is an unnecessary hurdle that you've created for yourself, and I'm trying to destroy it in a very nice way.
Sure.
So
Sure.
how many times a week are you seeing your family? Monday through Friday?
Once, maybe.
Exactly. And then how many times on a given month are you spending time with friends and family on weeknights or weekends? Talk about friends.
Like friends, I would say between 2 and 4 days a week.
Is it during the week or weekends?
I would say both. We're both pretty extroverted people, so we like
Love
we're the
it.
social butterflies.
But my point is that you're not, if you move a little bit closer to where you're not driving, I mean, that's the way I look at it. Are you going to be going in 5
Sure.
days a week?
I would be, yeah.
Yeah, that sucks. You don't want to be 2 hours in the car every day. So what I would do
No.
is I would move a little bit further away from friends and family, but only to make my drive 30 minutes one way and 30 minutes back. I can deal with that. If you can deal with that, but then you're not so far away that it's inconvenient to see friends and family. And family, you're not seeing enough anyway that this is a factor. Friends, sure, you guys are going to have to be a little bit more intentional to go, all right, we'll meet halfway or we'll drive to them.
Sure. That
But
makes
if
sense.
that's the biggest issue, which it feels like that's the biggest issue, then I think that's an easy solve.
I like that. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah. I mean, does that meet your needs? Because I think that's the
I think
key.
so.
She seems to be very open to all of this.
She would be, or yeah, she's definitely open to it. More on the perspective of I don't want your leftovers. And I mean, when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh, that hit me straight in the heart. That was like the word of the Lord right there.
Isn't that the truth? And see, can I just tell you
Yep.
this? The fact that you two are going to have a better relationship and things are going to be so much better will make up for the inconvenience of seeing everybody else.
That's a great way to say it. I agree with that. That's
So-
good.
So then I think I look at this and I go, all right, wait a second. Does quitting this job and taking this other job, does it make my life better? We're talking about you, Dave. The answer seems unequivocally yes. Then you go, does it make my marriage and my relationship better? The answer is unequivocally yes. Does it make my overall mental and emotional and quality of life better? Yeah. Does it harm my family and friends' relationships in any way? No, it doesn't. Man, I feel like this is just right down the list. I think we've gone through the things that I would want to check off to make this decision. By the way, we didn't even talk about what does it do for your future, your professional future.
Right.
Does it help you? Does
Right.
it put you on the right ladder to where you can climb?
I think so. Part of my frustration at my current role is feeling like I've hit a ceiling and like there's just no opportunity for advancement. And so I'm dealing with that boredom, 7-year itch kind of emotions.
Well, good. So I feel like this just advances us. It makes a positive change that we can grow from, and we can just set up our next platform for growth. I like this for every reason that I can possibly think of. Every reason. So how close are you to this? Did they offer you the gig?
No, nothing's offered. I'm currently interviewing, and so nothing's on the table, but I'm one who thrives off of a lot of input, and so I'm
Good. Yeah,
gathering input from several sources.
Yeah, you're very over analytical, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah, I get it. You're talking to somebody who does the same thing, so I can I can empathize with that big time. So here's the deal. I'm glad we walked through this to the detail that we did, because if this gig does not work out for you, these same thoughts could pop up. Some of these circumstances will pop up. And at the end of the day, whether I'm moving an hour away and I'm seeing friends less, I would still make the decision, even if you move a full hour away. My parents, my brother, they live in Virginia. I may get back once a year. I wish I could do more, but I've decided to live the life that I'm supposed to live, and you got to be okay with that. And if this changes your life and your marriage and everything else, then we can make adjustments by seeing friends and family in a little bit different context and a little bit less time. But that's okay, because overall life is better. And that's what I want for you. I want you to live a life that when you get to the end of the road, you look back and you reminisce, you don't regret. And I'll say that over and over again. And this is a decision that will allow you to look back and reminisce and not regret. One of the top 5 reasons people in hospices give that they regret at the end of their life, they know life is coming to an end. One of the top 5 regrets is, I did not live the life that I truly wanted to live. That is haunting. And work and relationships are a massive part of putting you in a situation where you can live the life that you desire to live, that you deserve to live. So live it. This is the Ken Coleman Show. Press on.
Thanks for listening to the Ken Coleman Show. For more, you can find the show on demand wherever you listen to podcasts and watch the show on YouTube. You can also find Ken across all social media by following @Ken Coleman.